Welcome to a very inspiring PWT Live. And it could not be at the perfect, in my opinion, at the perfect time in history. We have today our executive mentor and leadership consultant, PWT mentor expert, and someone whom I respect deeply as a friend and colleague, Mindy McManus. So let's get to it.
Empowering women on a global scale. Welcome to Powerful Women Today with Carolina Billings. Powerful Women Today is on a mission of inclusion, rewriting his story to include her story, and empowering, raising, and amplifying women's voices with professional speaking, publishing, original podcasting, and web TV. And now here's your host, the founder of Powerful Women Today, Carolina Billings.
Hey, Mindy, welcome. I am so excited for our conversation today. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, absolutely. Today we're speaking, it's funny because, going back to my years in human resources, I'm always like so careful, right? To make sure that, sometimes you try to be a little bit provocative, but never controversial. And I was just reflecting as I was getting, our show framework together that, speaking of faith is something in spirituality, something that is both provocative and controversial. And you got to be so careful with it. And how did we get here? And so this is where you come in. You have done incredible work. You and I have known each other for, oh goodness, almost 5 years, have been through some pretty interesting times personally and as a collective consciousness. And we often speak of faith and spirituality and how it unites us, it divides us, it builds us, it destroys us. And you've done such an incredible job you're emerging, it's not that it wasn't there, but it became a top priority, your faith belief system. As you coach and do consulting with some of the biggest, leaders in the world, leadership organizations in the world. So help me navigate through that. How did Mindy, the executive coach, became Mindy, the true believer?
Well, I've always been Mindy, the true believer, but I started speaking out more about my faith after I had a near-death experience, and that really changed my life, and it changed who I am, and it really made me realize and recognize that I wasn't spending enough time with God and Jesus, which is, I'm a Christian, that's what I am. But I've also believed that when I find people that are not doing well in my coaching, it's because they're not connecting back to their source of faith. Yeah. And so I find that when people are connecting back with their faith, they're able to lead better. They're able to live a better life. Instead of life happening to them, they start being more intentional about life happening and making their life happen instead of life happening to them. And it's about opening up that conversation too.
Well, and that's the part that's become taboo, to even utter the word belief and faith in God, right? In like you said, you happen to be Christian. Powerful Women Today, we're an interfaith kind of organization. I happen to be within the Judeo-Christian and belief system, but I do follow a lot of Taoism, kind of Eastern philosophies in traditional philosophy as my guiding dogmas. But one of the things that one of our colleagues, our mentor expert, Marlene Doss, who's an attorney, and a dear friend, also said to me, and it kind of like was that big aha moment, right? She said, Carolina, you cannot pray and worry at the same time.
Yeah.
It's either you believe in the power of prayer
Mhm.
or you don't, because you can't pray and still doubt.
Absolutely.
And it was just when it was put in such a logical, way, right? It's like, you know what? And as a leader, right? As in, I imagine a coach on the sideline, right? Of traditional coach in sports, right? You're trying to tell your team, it's like, go for it until the whistle blows, right? Like anything can happen. Go for it. Imagine if that same coach would be saying, go for it. I don't know, guys. I think this is done, right? I don't know. Go for it. Give it all you got. I don't think we can recover from this. Like you can't have both mindsets,
Sure.
if that makes any sense. So
Absolutely.
when it comes
Absolutely.
to a leader, right,
Mhm.
you deal with a lot of executives. We work with a lot of CEOs, founders. Where does pragmatism, faith, and belief intersect? Or how? Not even where, but how?
Well, when you have an experience like me, or that you really go deep with God, and then so I had that near death experience, and then I read the Bible from beginning to end, and that was transformative for me. And I knew at that point in time that I was not going to be quiet, and I was going to share my faith, but then also not just share it and push it on people. That's not what I'm about. I'm about learning about you and your faith, and learning and helping you to connect back in with your faith. Because the more that we can connect in with our faith, we become better people. We
Yeah.
become better leaders just by connecting back into that, because we have so many different things coming at us as leaders, as CEOs in the C-suite. There's so many times when the wrong thing could be, we can make the wrong decision, or we choose to do something that's not quite right. And
Yeah.
those opportunities happen more when we're not connected to our faith.
When
And
we're
that's when we do
compromised.
that's when we might do something that's maybe against our values, because it's for the organization, it's for your job. But when you have your faith in God, or whoever it is that you pray to, or you have your faith to, it builds that confidence to be able to share. And I like to just share. My role is just to share. That's all I got to do. And then I want to learn about you. And if I show up and I'm a role model. That's what I
Yeah.
do.
And
And
you know
I
what?
leave it between them and God of what they're going to do, and who they're going to, how they're going to have their faith and religion moving forward.
Yeah. And how does their faith shows up, right? And how does that intersect? I like that intersect, because nothing is truly merged, nothing is truly separate, right? It's not like, you can be an evil person during the day without, and by evil I mean ruthless, right? Like, I don't care, and then go home and be a pillar of the community and salt of the earth, right? Like, how does that happen, right? How is that duality? And
Mm-hmm.
I do think, I just came to mind, roles or jobs like, being, within the chain of command, right? Where you're not the ultimate decision maker,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like you said, like, how do you reconcile
Mm-hmm.
your belief system in your integrity? Because really it's about that. And I remember once, mine was not as transformative as yours. I do respect that. But I did have there's been several forks in the road that when you begin to open your mind and heart to spirituality and to knowing that doing what's right matters,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's just you in the room, right? I remember a number of years ago, somebody within a business that I was consulting affiliated with, one of the managers disclosed a heart condition and was going to require accommodations that really meant he could no longer do his job, right? So it was like finding another job. And I remember the CEO, the acting CEO, it was an owner operated business, saying to me, well, he's got to go. I'm going, well, legally we cannot do that, right? And even if we could, even if you could like genuinely show that there's just like nothing for him to do, and that's according to Canadian employment and standards, is that the right thing to do? I mean, this gentleman's been loyal to you, he's worked here for many years. Does that seem the right thing to do? And I remember him saying, it's my business, my rules, either he goes or you go. So I went, right? And I remember in that split of a second, there not being a choice.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, then I go. I am at peace with that, right?
Right.
And there were consequences to that decision, right? Like it never comes consequence free.
No.
It's just you got to choose what will either feed your soul or compromise it in the long haul, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So recently, there's been a lot more events in a lot more talk of miracles. We just experienced one on the weekend that
We did.
how do you defy that, right? How
That
do
was
you
the
define
hand of God. That
and
was
that
the
is,
hand of
there was somebody was reading all of the feedback, and there was a quote that, when you read a quote that you may agree or disagree, it's not even about that, but they're just so powerful that just kind of like makes you question everything, right?
God.
And I read a quote that said, no one can kill a man that God wants alive.
Exactly.
I just thought, like, wow, right? And
Yeah.
so this talk of miracles, this talk of, faith, this talk of belief, right? Does it have a place in the C suite? Does it have a place in business and leadership? And if
Absolutely.
so, how do we do it in a way that doesn't cost you your job, in a way that it doesn't cost, you
Yeah.
know, in like, I understand sometimes that is the price to pay, but that's the extreme.
Yeah, that's very extreme. And I used to work at Mayo Clinic, and granted, it's very conservative. It's multi-generational, like international. There's people from different faiths and everything like that. And what I did is I just started talking about God. I'm standing strong in my faith and started bringing him into the conversation. And you know what I found? There were a lot more Christians at Mayo Clinic than I thought.
Wow.
And I haven't had any pushback. Nobody's ever said don't talk about God. And I just say this is where I'm coming from. I'd love to hear what you are. And a lot of people were Christians too, and they really liked that I brought it up. They really liked being able to talk about it at work, because you're not going to get fired because you talk about God at work. Now, if there's certain things that you can and can't do at work, and if you're an executive, you should be smart enough and have enough emotional intelligence to figure out how to bring that in. But you just start talking about it, and you talk about your faith. Don't try to pressure or push anyone. It's just you tell them, this is my faith and this goes against my belief system, and therefore I'm going to need to say no
Yeah.
to whatever that is, or to say this is what I can do for you, because I never believe in saying no. I always believe in saying this is what I can do for you. But you just have to start. And that's why I'm working with C-Suite for Christ right now, and my business is partnering with them, because our business executives, Christian business executives, churches don't know how to contact them. They don't know how to connect with them. And so what we're doing is providing a space for business executives who are also Christians to come in and fellowship with other Christian business executives and really get your spiritual gas tank filled so that you can go out there and be a better leader. And that's really what it's about. And then helping people learn and learning from different people. How are you bringing this up at work? What are you seeing? I mean, I just had a friend that posted on Facebook yesterday saying how, like, she's like me, she started adding God to her conversation. Well, she's getting a lot of pushback. And I said, maybe you're just in the wrong group. We need to invite you into C-Suite for Christ. sometimes, we have to find our space where we can talk about God or our faith and share how that has helped us in our workplace.
Or find common discourse, right? You could
Yes.
start a meeting,
Yes.
especially an important meeting, by having a moment of reflection. And it
Exactly.
doesn't have to be any particular denomination. It could just be,
Exactly.
let's just ask for wisdom
Mhm.
in our decision making,
Mhm.
right? And
Right.
because we bring in that word secular a lot, right? In secular, it just means separate. It does not mean it does not exist,
Exactly.
right? And it's finding that intersectionality between the two. We happen to be headquartered in Toronto, where we're I think the third most diverse city in the world, following New York and I believe London.
Mhm.
And it's about respecting each other, right? In honoring still the social contract, right? If my faith says, I don't know, we will like stone someone to death if they do something, okay, that doesn't follow our laws. Like, you still have to respect your social
Right.
construct and your social contract. However, right, in a workplace and in leadership, I look at Jordan Peterson, for example, one of the greatest intellect, living current, contemporary intellect, of our time. And he's a psychologist and he's a man of science, clearly. But he often brings his personal belief system, in special sections, right? Like, he will have a particular get together to discuss the scripture, right? And okay, clearly that's not for everyone's discourse, but he's also able to carry his you know initiatives and his vision, for a better emotionally intelligent world, out there.
And
And
one of the things that I do want to tout Mayo Clinic for is they did have an interfaith MERG, or an ERG, an employee resource group. And I love that because I'm just curious. I want to learn about them because I'm curious. I want to know kind of where people are coming from. But it's important that we share our faith. It's important that we share where we're coming from. It's important that we show up authentically at work with who we are. And if you feel moved to mention that you're a believer, nobody's going to, if somebody fires you because you're a believer, you're in the wrong place. And
well,
maybe
yeah,
that's a
exactly,
blessing from
right.
God. Like, come on. Like,
Yeah.
that's not how it is anymore. And to be honest, I am sick and tired of our world being on this discourse between not being able to talk about, I don't even call it religion. I want to call it faith. I want to call it
Spirituality.
spirituality, what drives me, what moves me, what are my core values.
Yeah.
That's really what we're
Through
getting in the
humanity, right?
conversation.
This is where we connect, at a point of humbleness.
Right.
There's a gentleman, and I'm not, I follow politics because it's interesting.
It's like a
Um,
train wreck, you have to
it,
watch it.
well, hopefully it's going to get better. I do hope and believe that it will get better. But one form of politics is funny, it's like we pick and choose, and there's a lot to be unpacked as to what we pick and choose. But I have never, coming from Latin America, coming from Central America, I've never followed their politics. I was so traumatized by the 80s, being a child, in the 80s in Central America, that once I was able to, find a new home, I kind of, I must admit, I kind of removed a little bit myself from the politics, not from the culture or the people, but the politics, until the current leader, the current president of the country. I began to, and this is a country of of faithful people, of religious people, right? And the current, person that's leading, actually has been the first of all, he's the only, publicly elected leader that has something like 95% approval rate, and he's somebody that prays out loud.
Mhm.
and that brings in that element of faith. And he's done incredible things for the country, for which he often just calls them a miracle, right?
Well,
But I
and
love
that
his
is
ability.
spirituality and leadership in action.
Yes, and that is, it's been so inspiring to, especially now with more independent press and more, direct to the public ability to share your messaging, that we are seeing a lot more faith and spirituality spoken out loud. And the important thing when people do, in my opinion, is because it holds you accountable.
Mhm.
Because you can't be on one hand saying, I trust in the greater good, right? And then be doing horrible things that someone can call you up on it.
Yes.
So it's almost a way to keeping you honest, like, you know what I mean? Like keeping yourself honest. Not that it should come from public pressure or external pressure, but it helps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is absolutely incredible. When you and I, and as I mentioned before in the introduction, we're friends. So we both know our belief system quite well.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I first saw you begin to speak publicly about it, I was so happy because I think faith-based leadership,
Mm-hmm.
it just makes you a better leader.
Yeah,
Whatever
definitely.
faith you prescribe to, right, or you affiliate with,
Mm-hmm.
I think it makes you a better person and it
Absolutely.
makes you a better leader. So
Mhm.
I am proud to champion you as one of our Powerful Women Today mentor experts. And I look forward to more openness about integrating faith and trust
Yeah.
and goodness and belief in our everyday
Yeah.
leadership. So thank you.
Absolutely.
This is absolutely lovely.
You're
We'll
welcome.
put your connection, the ways, all your coordinates for people to connect with you.
Thank you.
And we look forward to you doing, leading a lot more of our networking, writing more openly about faith-based leadership, and in our magazine, in our, upcoming summits and books, and wherever PWT is found.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely day. And thank you to all of our friends and audience and anyone that comes across this clip, to listen to us with an open heart and an open mind.
Thank you.
And we wish you the best of days. Thank
Indeed.
you. And until next time.
Empowering women on a global scale. This has been Powerful Women Today with Carolina Billings. To learn more about how you can join and transform your life and the lives of women everywhere with professional speaking, publishing, podcasting, and web TV, visit powerfulwomentoday.com. Remember to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you like to listen and watch your podcasts.